welcome to Mediocre Rumor Brothers. How's it going, everybody? We're going to go ahead and start with our series or episode of What Kills a Video Game. But before we get started, let's make sure you subscribe to our Spotify, Twitter, YouTube, and our Rumble channel. For this episode, I'm going to be passing off the reins to Udon. Udon, take it away.
Well, today is just going to be a more general discussion because that topic of what kills a game is very broad. A game doesn't have to be fully dead for it to be killed. It can be a fall from grace, can be dead in the water, like dead projects or something that never even got off the ground in the first place. Anything really. I guess to start things off, does anyone want to pitch in with a game that they were invested in that was kind of killed off in some way, shape, or form, and how was it killed off in your mind, or if is an objective reason why it was killed off?
The first example that I can think of right now is Anthem.
Yeah,
I was kind of hyped for it. It seemed pretty cool on the surface, basically an Iron Man simulator, and I bought it and I played it with my buddy for like the first week it launched. I think we put like 40 hours in, and the problems that started to arise was like it's a live service game that's kind of like Destiny, and I was doing quests and raids and it wasn't saving my data. It wasn't tracking my progress, so I had to do quests over and over again, and I wasn't getting the rewards I was supposed to be getting. And it like that eventually it was like, this is not like, I'm getting tired of doing shit over and over again, so I'm gonna have to back out. And I'd imagine that is kind of what ended up happening to the large community of that game, because it started to really kind of dwindle. And I think, what didn't we see it at a used game store for like $2 or something?
Yeah, no, actually it was $5.
Oh, it's $5.
More Andromeda was $2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that because they dropped support of that game like really early on, didn't they, Anthem?
Yeah, it's like they didn't prioritize it in like any way, like almost immediately when it came out. It's just like we didn't get the amount of people we wanted day one, so it's a dead game.
Well, I think at least I know from my own investigation, another thing is that I think that game was a victim of higher ups kind of fucking over the lower workers, because from what I understand, that like the whole concept of flying, being able to fly whenever you want in that game, was like taken in and out of the game several times, and like you have to kind of build the game around that mechanic, because it affects level design, it affects how enemies react, it affects your powers. So continuously changing big things like that kept like setting them back over and over again, to the point where like it just kind of started floundering, and the game just never really was able to reach its full potential because of that. At least from what I understand, because I played the game too, and I was less than impressed with it. Like, again, I enjoyed the concept. I feel like it's basically Iron Man suits. I mean, who doesn't like that? But I think ultimately it just didn't have any real content for people to bite into, and it was just another looter shooter no one cared about,
Yeah, I mean, it was a looter shooter, and the content was less than good, because there was like only like maybe like 3 things that you could be doing, and they were all repetitive. And then the never-ending loading screens. I know that was a big issue.
I didn't like how they handled the hub world either, because it went to that like first person thing, and the visuals were like being really ramped up. Like the whole climbing in was cool, but it was just strange that it almost felt like a separate game. And like from when you're like running around doing all the cool action shit to being in town and moving incredibly slow. I don't know. Like Destiny's hub world is way better.
Oh wait, wasn't that BioWare too, Anthem? That was BioWare, right? Or am I getting? I know. Am I getting that confused?
EA, maybe it was.
No, I'm pretty sure it was EA, but no, because it was some company that's like they weren't like especially proficient in like the kind of game.
BioWare.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So yeah, BioWare was like all about, at the time they were still like the people, we went to for like narrative games and like good good characters and stuff like that, and that was just like pretty much absent from the game entirely. So when it just came down to gameplay, it was like really awkward. It was a weird assignment for the studio. So I think that was just kind of like a simple case of just no one cared because the game just wasn't that engaging or good. Like there was nothing really about it that drew people in, and it just kind of died because of it. And what we were saying last time with player bases and stuff, games like that's going to live or die on its player base. So there's no
Yeah.
players, there's no game.
Well, everybody I talked to that like about that game all said the same type of shit, where it was like progress being halted due to it forgetting that you even did the quest. And it didn't even matter. It wasn't like a matter of who's host, which I also hate that shit so much because it's like, oh, let's do a quest, but your party leads, so it only counts for you. Like, but I was there, so why doesn't it also count for me?
Yeah.
But
Different timeline.
like even I did raids by myself in that game, and then when it was over, the chest would appear, but it would never let me open it. And that when I finally hit that for like the third time, doing a whole raid alone, I was like, I am not playing this anymore. I think I went and
Yeah.
traded it in. I don't typically trade in games anymore. But yeah, I was like, this I don't even want to keep it.
Well, considering the servers are shutting down soon, it's a useless piece of plastic anyways. So,
It's a frisbee now.
but yeah,
No,
that's
but
like
like
a really
the 600 signatures though to keep it on.
yeah, all 600 people. That's really pathetic for a game with that kind of backing or supposed backing. But yeah, that's just that's like a cut and dry, case. It's an example of what we're talking about today. I think I've mentioned this before, but on my end, the one that affected me the most was a gotcha game that I played called Princess Connect. At least globally, the JP server's still up, but the global server basically got put out back with a bullet in its head because Crunchyroll, the fucktards, weren't satisfied with the money it was making per month and just um, didn't want to keep the global servers running. Which, thank God, Cygames apparently learned their lesson. They just have control of their own thing for Musume, so hopefully that's not going to suffer the same fate. But unlike Princess Connect, Musume is also very clearly very popular with a lot of people, and hopefully that'll have some staying power. But it was a nice gotcha game that I really, really liked, and unfortunately it just got, it got just deleted because it just wasn't making enough money for them, and they were just like, fuck it, we don't want to deal with it anymore. Just delete the
I
whole thing for
wonder
everyone.
I wonder what that number is. Like, what is the number that would have made them keep it?
Well, I don't. Well, the funny thing is, right, is that like they weren't making the game. What they were doing was just. I'm going to assume. I'm going to be generous here with their responsibilities and say they're responsible for maintaining the global servers and translation. Like, I don't know if their translation was their problem, but I'm going to assume like that was the extent because I can't possibly imagine what else their input is because they're not making the game. Cygames is the ones making the game, and the content was already created because it was already in JP for a long time. So they're just porting over content essentially, and it was still making, I think, somewhere between $150,000 to $200,000, or between 100 and 200,000, probably on the lower end of that a month. But for a game that you're not actively making like content for, you're just porting over pre-made content. I can't imagine like if that was like putting them in the negative. I don't understand. Like I said, it's not the most popular gotcha game. It's not Zenless. It's not Fate. It's not it's not Genshin. It's not breaking in millions of dollars a month. But it was doing all right for something that you're not actively making. So it was just weird when they put the bullet in its head, and it was really disappointing for a lot of people.
Yeah, especially if you poured in a bunch of cash and then all of a sudden the servers are gone. You're like, guys,
What was even funnier is that when they announced like the game was being taken offline, they're like, "Don't worry, we're not going to let you, we're going to disable purchases and it's going to be taken offline in like 2 months. But up until then, we're going to keep releasing content for it." And everyone's like, "But who fucking cares? You're going to get rid of it. Why would I keep playing? There's no point."
Yeah,
it was just. It is really awkward, and so like for the next 2 months, they kept posting about the stuff they were adding to the game, and people just kept like dislike bombing it because they're like, "Who fucking cares, you ass wipes? Like you're gonna take the game offline. Everyone already left." But yeah, that was just like one of the disappointing. That's another case of just like not publisher problem, but just a straight up like this doesn't make enough money. Just put it, throw in the glue factory. But yeah, that's my case for something like that, and it was really disappointing for me.
And also, I think like Telltale Games, like it ran into a somewhat similar situation, whereas like their player base just like slowly died off because they had too many series going on all at once.
Well,
I
with
think
them, I feel like that's actually a special case if we're talking specifically about like how what was it? There was The Walking Dead, like the last couple of Walking Dead episodes. They were like, I think it was like 2 episodes ish before it was supposed to be done for like good, and then Telltale shut down.
So that
And I, I
they were solely focused on like the Minecraft story afterwards because they were still continuing that one even though the studio closed because hey, priority, everyone loves Minecraft.
that was such a strange like incident
better
too,
story than the
because
movie.
they were they were hiring people still, and like if your whole studio is going to close down, that's not necessarily something that like has been decided upon 5 minutes before. Like at least the higher ups would know, like, hey, the studio's going to close unless we do something, and they're not going to tell everybody because that creates panic amongst employees. So there was I think one person who just started their first like week at work or whatever because they just got accepted, like they got hired by this company, moved there, and then was like, what, when the studio closed? It because I think everybody found out with an email that said like you had 30 minutes to go home or something like that, or it's like trespassing or some shit. It was
Oh,
just
that's
so
kind of
abrupt
dumb.
for everybody else at their desk, and it's like, wow, what the hell, guys? But Telltale to me, like I don't really know like the truth of why they
I know
shut
the
down.
general overview of why it was mismanaged, like mishandling of funds, because they were making bank still. Like they weren't
Yeah,
as popular as they were when The Walking Dead first came out, but um, it I think it came down to like the higher ups that were just like spending money left and right and just like threw them into bankruptcy essentially. Like
it's when you're
it was
dealing with IPs. Yeah, I could see that happening easy because they once they dipped into Marvel because they got, well, they dipped into Marvel and DC because they had the Batman one and they had Guardians of the Galaxy, I think.
yeah. But that was again that's another example of a different case because it was basically just the higher ups mishandling money because otherwise it was nice. That was a really nice thing that Skybound did, hopping in to at least finish the Walking Dead, because that was the end of like Clementine's story, and even though a lot of people's like investment had fallen off at that point, for the people who were still invested to just finish out the story was really nice of it. So it in the end the game itself got saved, but now we're never going to see any more Telltale games again. So that'll be the last one.
Yeah, and it's that's disappointing to me because I really wanted to play Wolf Among Us 2.
Yeah, that
I
was an
like
underrated
they
one that
released
they
that
did.
trailer. Yeah, they released that trailer and I was like, "Oh, hell yeah. I really like that one." And then I'm never going to get it because they decided to run how many games do they have going at the same time? So it was like Batman, Borderlands, Minecraft, Game of Thrones, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Walking Dead. And all of those were episodic. There was no like innovation around those games either, so I feel like people just started kind of getting tired because it was, those are really basically interactive, graphic novels in a sense. Choose your own adventure.
Yeah, but the games have always been like that, though.
Yeah, it's just like none of them really differ that much. And I played the Game of Thrones one, and that one kind of was disappointing to me in the because of they made up a bunch of characters to get the story across, and because of where they were at in the show, because it was like right at the peak of popularity, right? And you'd see the characters from the show, and that was kind of the hype. But you're like, well, that character going to die because they're still in the show. So like the whole point of the Telltale games was like my choices are going to do something that I don't know what's going to happen, but because this character is still on TV, I know nothing can happen if they're trying to fit this into the story somehow. So all the characters that are not in the show that show up on the screen, I'm like, well, you're going to die because that's obvious, And then same thing goes for like Batman or Guardians. Like they're going to be beholden to the IP's rules of what they can and can't do. And oddly enough, I think that if it was still going strong today, they'd probably have a few Star Wars ones.
I wouldn't
So,
doubt it.
I mean, the most knowledge that I have of Telltale games is the Game of Thrones one, and I just fucking hate it so much because it's supposed to be a choice game, but it's just so narrow in the possibilities, because that's the way that I always thought of the Telltale games. It's not like super like diverse.
Well, that was
or
a
like
criticism
I
that
worked with
people developed like really later in their life cycle when people started slowly like realizing their formula and going back, and especially people who decide to go and play through a second time. It's like, I'm going to make different choices, and at the end of the day, all their choices always led to the same outcome anyway. So it really didn't feel very, uh, their whole gimmick started coming to light, and people started getting less and less invested in what they were doing simply because of that.
Turns out the player
okay,
base remembered this.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
because it was like it's just like it's like it doesn't. I'm just reading a story. Like my choices don't matter. It's just like I was like I just choose how much everyone likes or hates each other. It's not like uh Detroit Become Human or anything like that. Like that one is just like everything's gonna change. Even Fable has like more impactful choices.
Well, I mean, fucking, what was it? Until Dawn had
Yeah.
lots of choices because we're gonna just fucking die, you know.
Yeah,
Got killed by a deer when I played that game.
I mean, it's funny because it's essentially like other people were taking what was supposed to be their gimmick and doing it better. Like they at the end of the day, it was a combination of mishandling of funds, and they wouldn't be dead today if not for that, but not in good graces unless they really started to innovate on their own ideas and started making changes to make something change or trying a bit harder.
I did like their art style. Like the games kind of
Yeah.
universally carried this like similar art style across them, and I thought that was pretty good. Um, yeah, the Game of Thrones one probably was the worst one of the ones I've played from them. And I just remember like it wasn't even optimized. I was playing on PlayStation. It was giving me Xbox prompts. And it's like, dude, there's QuickTime events. Like you can't give me a button I don't have, and then I have to figure it out.
Yeah, I think laziness was also, well, maybe not on the developer, like actual creators' part, but they were definitely doing a lot of rush jobs after a certain point. Like the game's quality kept going down and down and down.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely nailed their business model was sell 1/5 of the game at a time.
Yeah, then they introduced that episodic concept, but thank God didn't catch on in a large way, but still affected things. Hello Final Fantasy, who want to sell
Yeah.
the same game 3 times for full
Meanwhile,
price.
Square's like, have you guys played this Walking Dead game? I have an idea for Final Fantasy.
Yeah. But I mean, either way, love them or hate them, it's sad that Telltale games as a thing just aren't going to be a thing from now on. They're just gone. It's over.
Yeah.
Which if anyone cares about the preservation of media, it kind of sucks. But um, I think I think an example I have of like another different kind of thing is like a fall from grace, and I'm going to pick on Overwatch, which is specifically why I chose it to get footage for this episode. Don't ever say I don't do anything for people, because holy fuck, that was the most painful hour and a half of my life.
I was worried when he chose to play that. I was like, why the fuck would he play Overwatch?
Because I think it's very appropriate. Yes, the game still has a player base. It is not dead per se, but it is definitely much worse than what even far from my own subjective opinion on the matter. It is not the game it used to be at all, and people just don't care about it anymore. No one talks about it. It just kind of sits over there in its little hell that they've created for it. But the game came out and everyone talked about it all the time. Overwatch, hell, I remember I went to an anime convention, like I think a few months after Overwatch came out, and it was supposed to be. I mean, it was an anime / gaming convention, but it was mainly anime. But fuck, that artist alley was all Overwatch. It might as well have been Overwatch Con with that and the amount of fucking cosplays there were. Like it was insane. And they had the MLG, the esports thing going on. Like I was even invested in the esports for a while, but then I think that was a case of just Blizzard shitting the bed, honestly, because they just started making new characters. Everyone says it started with Brigitte. I don't know if it started with Brigitte, but that's where most people who like the game would point towards. I don't really agree with that, but either way, the characters they started introducing, the power creep that started happening, and then they had this like balancing nightmare, and then like the game just became so fucking chaotic and unwatchable. It felt like every single patch the game was just going downhill one way or another. It was just getting more unbalanced, or this, that, or the other thing was happening, and people just weren't enjoying it anymore. And then, of course, Overwatch 2 came out because they're like, hey guys, we're going to make some PvE content. And they had already making some PvE content with a couple events in the past, and it was really fun. And because people really liked that. I liked it too. And so when they were like, yeah, we're going to do a Overwatch 2, and there's going to be a whole campaign and tons of replayability, I'm like, oh my God, that sounds super cool. Especially because I'm getting really fucking sick and tired of the PvP in this game because it's really pissing me off. And it kind of sucks because I still, I hate Overwatch as a, but I still love the characters as well. I like all the old characters. I don't think I like any of the new characters except for Juno, and like Junker Queen are fine, but like the new ones, hell, when I logged in there today, some fucking new tank guy, he's a fucking mess. I have no idea what the hell his shtick's supposed to be.
Oh, the Maui guy.
No, not him. Mauga's fine. Like I don't mind Mauga. It's some fucking Irish dude that has magic spikes or some like his whole design is balls. Like he was I didn't like him. But point aside, Overwatch 2 came out and they're like, okay, so that campaign thing that we talked about, the entire reason we're making a sequel, we're not doing that anymore. And it's like, so why the fuck did you make a sequel? It's like to reduce the amount of players per game, to reduce the amount of insanity that we've created, and to make the game free to play and put microtransactions in. And we're taking out loot boxes, and we're going to make everything really, really fucking expensive. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. And for Telltale reference, everyone hated that.
Yeah.
And I played Overwatch 2 for a little bit, like through the first season, but I just kept falling. I'm like, this game keeps getting greedier and greedier, and the patches keep getting worse and worse. And going down to 5v5 was just bad. No more 2 tanks. I can't play Diva as a side. I think I've explained this before, but me and my friend Blake he'd play Roadhog, I'd play Diva. It's 2 off tanks, but both those tanks aren't tanks on their own, and they tried making them tanks on their own, and it makes them not the characters they used to be. So all the characters that I like to play don't play how they used to, and like it's just a mess. And like the more they tried with it, the more it just died off, and to the point where like, good.
And then, like, the more it dies off, the more it just reverts back to Overwatch 1. Because, like, the last thing that I heard about it is just like, oh, we're bringing back 222, so you can have 2 tanks again. It's like, it's just fucking Overwatch 1. This transition to 2 made no sense.
And they bring back loot boxes. It's absolute insanity. And I'm just like, wow, this is the Thanos meme of just like, well, you tried all this other shit, but what there that bring you crawling back to me? And it's like, wow, y'all shouldn't even have done this in the first place. And it's all like, they'll never admit it, but it's like, yeah, you should have just said, hey, we fucked up. Let's go back to Overwatch 1. And I bet you they would have won a lot of good faith back, but you can't be doing that to maintain your looks as a company. So, like I said, the game isn't dead. There's, as I played it today, playing quick play for any role, I probably got into a match. You'll see the footage. It was probably about 10, 20 seconds, maybe 30 at most. So there's still a sizable population playing the game. It's not dead, but compared to what it was at its height, because they even stopped the esports, they don't do that anymore. Like they shut that whole thing down. It's just the game now. And it's also what I've said. The game was balanced around. This happens with a lot of competitive games, I think, in my opinion. They're balanced around the esports and like the top percentage of players, which I think is a huge mistake if you want to keep the game going long term. Because those esports players are not your general player base. Like that is a very small percentage of people. You need to make the game fun, not competitive. And I'm sorry if competitiveness is what. It's like I'm sorry if competitiveness is what's fun for some people, but the truth is that's the minority of people, and those aren't the people that's going to keep your game running.
Well, that's what Bungie is about to find out with the marathon incident, because that demonstration,
it's going to suffer the same fate as Concord and Anthem. It's not going to have a player base to maintain anything. Yeah. It's going to come out. People are going to play. People are probably going to talk shit about it when it comes out, honestly. And then it's going to die off in a few months because there's not going to be a player base for it.
Well, it's crazy because it's literally like when I saw the game and then it's an extraction shooter, I immediately was like, oh, is this going to be like a free-to-play? But if it's a game that you have to buy and that is the only thing that it offers you, then
I almost think you can't. Dog. Well, and that's the thing. Overwatch even got away with that when it first came out. You had to pay like $40 to just get in, and then there was loot boxes too. But people didn't mind because it was fun at first. And But then, like, I don't think in this day and age you can even get away with having a multiplayer game that is solely multiplayer and have people pay for it. They just won't, because there's too many options that are free
Yeah,
to go
I
to
mean,
now.
there's literally Paladins. Though Paladins development is stopped now. There are no new characters, no new content, as the studio's like directing their focus towards Smite 2. But I mean, they're still Paladins players. Might not be as popular, but they were playing that and it was free. I mean, I used to play that all the time too. Because, well, that was the thing. It was free. I didn't
Well,
spend a
it's just
single dollar on that game.
it's just like there's just so many options. You can't ask a price up front, because again, wow, that worked out really great for Concord. I mean, Concord might have had some kind of struggling player base if it was free. I don't think it would still be around, like, but it would have a way better chance of living if it did. But and I'm not wrong in that, right? Concord did cost something up front. That wasn't a free game, right? You had to pay
No,
for
that
that.
wasn't free. I think
Yeah,
there
that's
was talk that they were going to try and like move it to like a plus game and give it to the players so that they get the community built up. But then I think it lasted 2 weeks and they pulled it off the shelves and refunded people. And I don't even know if
yeah.
they were going back to the drawing board with it. But I mean, you're talking about an estimated $400 million flop. That barely moved. Um, was it a PlayStation exclusive or was it PC and
Yes, it was
PlayStation?
PlayStation. I believe it was an exclusive, but someone might want to fact check that.
Let's see.
It definitely wasn't coming out for Xbox. I know that much. Might have been for PC, but I mean, that's
Oh, it was
and
also on
that's an
Steam.
example.
It was on Steam.
It was also on Steam, and it had an all-time peak of 697 people.
Oh my god!
It's
That's
so bad.
That's so freaking bad.
That's as many people as played Anthem. It was the
Yeah.
same 600 people.
Yeah, those people just moved on.
Um, but yeah, I mean, so the Overwatch thing is an example of a game like dying a slow death just due to bad. It was a simple. I think it's as simple as just bad decision making by Blizzard, the developers. Like
Too
every
close to the
patch, things
sun.
just getting worse and worse. Yeah, it just nothing ever got better. People kept thinking it was going to get better, and goddamn, now I fucking remember when I logged in today, and I remember when I saw this initially, but I didn't look into it. But now there's like you level up in game now, and you level up twice, and you can pick like 2 different perks for your character as the match goes on. I'm just like, God, how much complexity! Like, Jesus Christ, God, you guys had a perfectly good formula at first. Like that millions of people came to play. Like, you don't have to switch up the formula. It's just like, just go back to what it was. And I know that's not an end all be all. I mean, granted, I'll always say this, things needed to change here. I didn't like Roadhog hooking people through time and space, when the fucking game first came out.
That
But
was funny.
it was hilarious, but it was horribly broken. But now Roadhog doesn't feel like Roadhog. Roadhog just feels like a totally different character and doesn't feel fun to play anymore. Also to note that your player base is probably not in a good position, because during my time playing, as you'll see, and to be clear, all the footage you're seeing, I'm only half-assedly trying, but like it's every game I'm fighting Winston, because Winston's the most broken tank. Like, the people I'm playing against, granted, I have played a long time, so my MMR is probably up there, but my point being is that most of the people who play this game now are all like the people who are playing it all the fucking time, so they're sweaty as hell. You're not going to find casual matches outside of doing like arcade, but if you just want to do like a normal format of Overwatch instead of playing mystery heroes, like, good luck. You're gonna have to sweat in every fucking game, because it's all meta. It's always meta. You have to play what's meta. Because I think you'll see in the footage. I think you'll see in the footage. I try and play Reinhardt, and the game is such a fucking victim of power creep, because Reinhardt's like practically fucking useless in the face of like any other. Because I'll be playing Ramatra mostly, because I find him somewhat fun, and he's a newer tank, which means he's caught up on terms of power scaling. Like, the game's just a mess. It just really is, and it was just a slow death of bad decision, bad decision, bad decision. Now the game's practically unplayable, at least in my opinion. But of course, it's a fall from grace. So I'm comparing it to it at its height.
It's kind of funny because Overwatch killed a game, killed Battleborn.
And the thing is, I didn't even think Battleborn was all that bad either. Like, Battleborn was fine. I played it because I was looking forward to Overwatch and needed something to hold me over. Yes, it wasn't perfect, but there was something there.
I think they moved Overwatch up to kind of consume that game, because that game was Gearbox's hero shooter, and it was going to come out, I think, a full 3 months before Overwatch, and Blizzard moved the release date up so that they could not basically lose all of the people that are invested in that shooter already. Because Battleborn, the character models were really cool. It was
Yeah.
more MOBA like than Overwatch's direct hero shooter, but it is what it is. People just
Yeah.
people grabbed onto basically Widowmaker and Tracer way more in Diva than like characters from Battleborn.
Oh yeah. Like it's not even close. I mean, yeah, fucking porn helps publish a game, sure, but now you have the fucking joke nowadays. It's like, oh, Mercy. It's like she's from a game,
Yeah.
and it's like you're only halfway joking.
It was, like, it was like if you don't have porn of your product, then you're already failing.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I mean that's my biggest example. That's the thing that stuck on my mind the most. Again, yeah, Overwatch still has a player base. There's still plenty of people playing it. Marvel Rivals, the hidden Marvel Rivals are like neck and neck. Marvel Rivals, its initial boost has gone down to where they've stabilized. They're no longer like super in the lead or anything. But if you're gonna hold a gun to my head and ask which one I'd rather play, I'd go back to Marvel Rivals every time. Like playing Overwatch for the hour and a half today to get the footage was like actually painful. Like it was hard. Like it was not fun at all. I think I might have won one game out of like the probably like 10-ish I think I've played. It's just not fun. It's and if you watch the footage, you can see this fucking chaos. The game is chaos. I can't tell. Like I'm usually pretty good at telling what's happening in chaotic games like that, but fuck me. Like I have a better chance of figuring out what's going on in a team fight in League of Legends than what the fuck's going on in Overwatch. It's insane.
I feel like a lot of stuff for like dying games or games that were killed off is that they always look back at like failed ideas and then just think, "Hey, I can do this better. We can make this work." And then they just somehow either do the same mistakes or just somehow flop even faster because a lot of times they're just following like either modern trends or doing a same thing that was done before, but they didn't do enough research on why it failed.
Yeah.
Or they just think that it's been long enough since someone did this. We can start a trend doing it again. But no.
Well, it's the thing that I always say, like when I'm just driving around town and like a restaurant's opening up, and then I'm like, oh, look, a burger joint's opening up where that last burger joint went bankrupt. That's
Yeah.
probably not a good idea. However, it does work sometimes, but it's because you didn't do exactly what the one before you did. You can't just do the same thing and expect a different result.
Have I told you the
tell-
definition of insanity?
Corey, didn't you tell us that there was a like Mexican restaurant, but there were 3 iterations of a Mexican restaurant in that same location? Then
Yes.
all 3 of them failed.
Yeah, it's like, stop putting a Mexican restaurant here. Nobody wants to. I think there's like a whole meme of it. It's like the town even knows that people keep buying it. It's got to be a money laundering scheme at this point because why would you? If you looked at the history as like a business owner and be like, I need a location for my restaurant because location is like a huge point. And they go, okay, well, here's a restaurant for sale. And they're like, okay, well, what's the history of this location? It's like, well, the past previous owners of the following have also failed. And then you're like, well, that's great news because I'm also one of those. Maybe it's a discount or something, or just it's a curse.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a cartel point. Checkpoint.
Yeah, basically, they're like, I don't care if I lose money here. This is a tax write-off.
Yeah. But yeah, that and the game is gonna keep going. We'll see how long it goes on for. But I think another different example is kind of like an IP. It's hard to say this with any definitiveness because it can be proven wrong with like the next day them announcing a new game. But like
Anthem 2.
Well, no, I mean I'm talking more like more kind of esoteric ones, more like kind of like Halo, honestly, because it's like we just had a big Xbox showcase about them showing off, that the Xbox ROG Ally and stuff, and they showed off all this crap, but nothing about Halo, and that's supposed to be like their flagship game.
They even tease you, right? Because they're like, wait, we got one more announcement, and it was a Call of Duty game.
Yeah, it's Call of Duty.
It wasn't even like a major Microsoft like property or new IP of some kind because they just canceled Perfect Dark, so there's a dead game.
There is a dead game, but I think we dodged a bullet on that one.
We was it Rare got their IP canceled, their new one, and then what was it? Microsoft killed. This is a long time ago. I always bring it up because I'm salty about it, but they killed Scalebound. That trailer was really cool. I wanted to play that game so bad. But yeah, it's just kind of like, what the hell is all this other crap?
Oh, I think it's Everwild was the
Everwild is the rare one, yeah.
And when and it sucks. Even when bad things die, it still sucks because it's a blow against media preservation. Because even if something sucks, people can still look at that in the future to dissect what was wrong with it and what went wrong to learn from it. So even taking away bad stuff like that kind of sucks because at the end of the day, you're just like art and knowledge is being lost. I know that sounds really grandiose for just video games, but it's kind of the truth.
Yeah.
So when things like this die or get canceled, it's a loss whether or not you liked it. Even when if Overwatch shut down tomorrow and all the assets were just gone, as much as I'd be cheering from the heavens, thank God it's dead, it's over. It'd still be a loss at the end of the day.
It's still. I don't know what the number when they cancel a game like Perfect Dark, right? They never saw the light of day. We didn't even get a chance to play a demo of any kind, so it never made it to the public, right? We just knew it was in development. They bragged about releasing it, and then they were like, "Nope," and then took it out back.
Did you see the character model? Didn't look pretty.
Well, that's the thing. Right?
I
saw
like,
how long has it been?
Comments.
how long has it been in development hell? And like, I think Concord, like, absolutely doing a flip and eating shit is a really good thing for everyone else to kind of see as a company, where you go like, oh, we do not want that happening. Like, I don't want to spend $400 million to release something that we're not fully confident in. So if there is any sort of semblance of like, I do not think this is going to work, we got to stop. Like, it's nice to catch that early instead of 8 years into development.
You know what company didn't do that? The ones Mind's Eye.
Mind's Eye. Yeah. Oh yeah, Mind's Eye. God, what I had a little, not like hope for it. I just was like moderately interested as like a casual purchase at some point, but then all of the stuff came out and was like, oh, never mind. Like, that's really sad. It's almost too sad, because there's a lot of buildup of like former GTA developers and stuff like that, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh, are those the ones that don't work there anymore because they lost their jobs?
I mean, they could set up some polls and ask what the actual gaming community really wants, rather than just assume that they know what the gaming community wants and then they fucking eat shit because of it.
I think that's...
Well, sometimes people know what they want. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the weird part is like, even when the gamers like say shit like that, they end up just getting yelled at by the developers, and like, if you don't like it, don't buy it. And then Battlefield shits the bed on like a player base. And they're like, oh God, what happened?
Gotham Knights is what people wanted, because I highly doubt that.
Well, Suicide Squad was another incident of this happening, where they were trying to figure out how to make a live service version of a game that had a bunch of characters that nobody really cared about in the mainstream, because they're just riding the superhero hype, which is no problem with that. But that game itself was kind of strange to me, because I thought it was going to be more, and I'm talking about Suicide Squad, Arkham style of game, but then you get this weird, like, I don't know, it just didn't look fun to me, and you have to play it online and all this crap.
You kill Batman.
Was another one that, like, what was the
well,
other
it's
one?
online.
That's the whole Gotham thing. I got that
like,
wrong.
No point.
Yeah, Suicide Squad is what I was talking about. That was the whole deal, where it's just like a huge problem, because they thought it was an okay idea to kill Batman off, which is like everybody's favorite character to have to begin with.
Well, it was kind of...
Well, not only kill him off. Well, you see, you can kill off Batman, but you have to do it respectfully. They did not do it respectfully. They had Harley Quinn, a murderer, a evil person, grandstanding fucking Batman over him, telling him how much better she is than him, basically. And I'm just like, holy fuck, you guys are so...
Didn't somebody urinate on him too? Like, wasn't it somebody pissed on him?
No, the Flash. No. Someone peed on the Flash.
Flash. Captain Boomerang.
Yeah, it was the Flash. Yeah, Captain Boomerang peed on the Flash after he saved their lives twice already in the game. It's like, wow.
So the thing that's funny about the Batman situation with that game too, because not only did the game get delayed a bunch, but it also was like not in good taste, considering the voice actor for Batman passed away.
Oh yeah, they had a tribute to him in the game, and people were like, "Wow, you don't even fucking deserve him." Like, it is so bad.
It was kind of fucked up. Another instance of this like live service, like, being applied to some bullshit was what is it that Avengers game.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a really bad. I played the demo for like an hour, and I was just telling myself, I was like, well, I am not having fun.
Wait,
I'm
is
playing
it
the
the
whole thing. I'm not
Avengers?
having fun.
The Avengers that like you just pick a character and they all have a personal pass or something like that?
Yes, they
Oh,
all
okay.
have their own battle pass, which was ridiculous.
Sorry, what you were gonna say.
Well, what I was gonna say is that, like, even though we hate all those games and we might even cheer their death, it's still a loss at the end of the day for media, because something was lost. Even if all you could do is just fuck around with it, mod it. I don't know. At least, at the very least, it can be a learning resource for game developers of what not to do. But we simply can't use them as metrics anymore. I think the Marvel game is still around, but Suicide Squad is getting shut down.
Yeah, it was a very expensive
And
lesson
don't do a
learned.
Concord.
I think that studio got closed too.
But don't do a Concord. Do an Expedition 33. That's
Well-
that's your standard.
Well, here's the thing, right? I even feel like we're reaching the live service. I don't want this to turn into a live service episode, but like a part of the thing that is killing a lot of these live service games is it's the Oberos snake. It's like eating its own tail at this point. We have reached oversaturation of the market of of live service games, because I think Corey said this a few times, but like, we can't play all of these. Like, people have like one that they'll continuously play. Like, you can't play every single one and spend money on all of them. You just can't, or don't have the time to. So
Yeah.
like, they're all competing for your attention. There's only so many gamers in the world, and some of them don't even touch live service games. So like, I feel like you just reached the apex of what is possible at this point.
Well, yeah, and they kill them off if they're doing like a sequel or something, because if you're doing one of those games that are meant to be played forever, right? And then they're like, "Oh, well, we have another one." It's like, I'm still playing the one that you made before. They're like, "Oh, well, that one, we're shutting the servers down." It's like, what? Like, because
And
you're forcing me to navigate my way over to this other thing, when I didn't want to do that. I mean, Destiny was that, right? Because Destiny 1, there's DLC, people were like heavily invested, and then they said, oh, we're doing Destiny 2 instead. And then they erase all of your progress and make you start over instead of
There's
like building on what they had.
It's like Destiny 1 was still open even though Destiny 2 was released. And also, in order to access like the new content, you had to pay for it. But later on, it'll all be shelved anyway. So you bought like the content for a live service game, and then now you just lost it because the developer said, "Hey, we can't use this, and there's too much space. We don't have enough space to fit the new stuff because of the old stuff." So you paid money, and now you're gonna lose the content that you paid for.
Yeah.
In the same vein, like, Overwatch 1 is gone. It's not coming back. There's only Overwatch 2. Like, at the very least, like,
You got to keep the skins you got.
yeah, you got to keep the skins, but the game itself is done. It's gone. The mechanics are gone. The player count's gone. As much as they're going to try to revert it to what it was, it's not going back. I mean, Overwatch 1, I'm not saying is some pinnacle of humanity, but like, it did things better than Overwatch 2 did. Overwatch 2 is what pretty much put the nail in the coffin of something that was already like choking and dying on its own fumes. And like, at least I can say, I like Ark Survival Evolved, right? And they came out with Ark Survival Ascended, which is like the remake of Survival Evolved, and they heavily want people to play on that game. They added modding on consoles, but they've added so many microtransactions and extra little bits and bobs to help pay for. But at the very least, I mean, they removed official servers from Ark Survival Evolved, not Survival Ascended is the new remake. Now, while they remove their official servers from Survival Evolved, you can still have your own player run servers. You can still buy servers to be run on it. So, but at least they didn't smother it and kill it and put a bullet in its head. If you want to play Ark Survival Evolved, that option is still open to people. And ironically, more people play it than the remake version. But at least they didn't destroy it, and they are forcing me to play Ascended. So it's nice in that aspect. So I mean, we're broadly talking about it, but it's all been revolving around things dying off or losing their popularity. I don't know what's the next thing that's going to be the victim of that, but I really do feel like live service games are the most prime example, because as soon as developers are done with them, they just throw them away. They're useless if they don't make money.
Well, there's like the funny thing about Mind's Eye specifically is that it was on that state of play that we were all surprised was actually pretty good, and then we were all intrigued. We weren't all interested in Mind's Eye, but we were all intrigued. We're like, oh, it does look like a cool game because it's like on this like hour long preview of the state of play. So like we had high hopes for most of the games on there, and then regardless, it still just flopped because it's just a shitty development cycle. But there's like that compared to Marathon, where it's just like, hey, it's here's another one of this. It looks fucking ugly, but they made the choice of, well, we're actually listening to the people, and we're gonna hold off on it to see if we can try and make it better. So we still have the possibility of fixing it, but we don't know when the next like release date will actually be.
For the record, I thought Mind's Eye looked really mid, but I am not the target audience for a game like that, so I was hoping people was gonna like it, but it ended up bombing.
Yeah, I
think
like maybe the Just Cause players would like come out in droves to give it a shot because it seemed like something that people that crave for Just Cause games like would love that shit. And then it just kind of came out to meh. It reminds me of like the Watch Dogs franchise of how that game was like super hyped in the trailer. Then the game came out and it was kind of under delivered, and then they made a sequel and nobody really cared. And then they made a third one that nobody even like. That was just the death of that franchise, I think, because they're like, what if we made a game that has no main character and all characters are randomly generated? It's like, cool. Now this game has no like soul because I can't attach myself to anybody because nobody is going to be interesting.
I'm sorry, you mean like what was that game that I hated that everyone loved? That Dragon's something.
Dragon's Dogma.
Was it that one? The one where like all your companions were just like soulless NPC characters?
Avowed?
Huh?
Avowed?
No, I haven't played Avowed. No.
Oh, Dragon Age.
It was Dragon. No, not Dragon Age. Dragon Age actually has characters. It was some. What the hell was it? It was There was the sequel game to something, and I tried playing the first one, and I was vastly disappointed in it. It's Dragon something.
Dark Arisen?
No, it came out not too unrecent. Not. I can't think it came out at the beginning of the year, and people were talking about it for a little while. It was a Capcom game, I think. You can climb on monsters and stab them.
Dragon's Dogma 2. It came out last year.
Sorry, people who like that. I kind of fucking hated it because it's like not 2 specifically. See if I like it. People were like, "Yeah, it's a cult classic," and I tried it. I'm like, because it's like the characters that. Yeah, it's like the characters. It's like, oh, you just make soulless NPCs for your companion characters. Wow, that's terrible. I'm never playing this. Also, I didn't really care for the combat, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not here to bitch about games. I wanted to circle back to Concord, obviously, since it's still relatively fresh in everyone's minds. But that's a game that died for multiple reasons, not just because it was a live service game. Like, there's a lot to be said for player base problems. It was only going to be a PS5/PC, which you can make a sustainable player base on, but you're only shooting yourself in the foot nowadays by not releasing something like that on all platforms minus Nintendo Switch because it can barely handle most of those things. But not only that, I mean, Concord suffered from unappealing character design. I can't speak to the gameplay because I didn't actually try the game myself, but from what I saw and what people were saying, the gameplay itself was pretty uninspired. And when you are put up against a game like Overwatch, because you are competing in that hero shooter genre, you're competing against stuff like Overwatch, like Apex Legends, because Apex Legends is battle royale, granted, but it's a hero shooter battle royale essentially. And those games people really like because they definitely have a very appealing art style. Apex Legends to a much lesser extent than Overwatch, but it definitely still has its own sense of style. Concord's just there was nothing popped about the game, like nothing really spoke to people, so like there was nothing appealing about it.
This.
I mean, unironically, that is part of the problem, right? I'm not going to bring too much light to the. I mean, you can get away with it. Apex Legends certainly does, but it's like attractive characters. So I mean, fuck, dude. Like, I'll say, I mean, who gives a shit about horse racing? And now everyone does. because
Yeah.
there's cute anime girls involved in it. Like it's I won't say it's an easy button because there is a moniker effort of making appealing character design, but like that is something that will bring people to your game. Like at the end of the day, is just appealing character design. And I'm sorry, sex sells. It's just a fact of life.
Well,
Um,
Concord's like cinematic cutscene they showed was super good. It was so well rendered. Like the characters looked amazing. The design of them doesn't necessarily look that great because they're kind of strange. I thought they're definitely going for this Guardian of the Galaxy type party thing. I didn't know it was a hero shooter at first when I saw the trailer, but like that's fine. That's a cutscene. The game itself, even though it's visually like well done, but the design of the characters was just kind of meh. Like I didn't really care about them. I I didn't see anything of them circling. None of the like fan artists that I've seen drew any pictures of these characters prior to the game coming out. Usually, when a character is seen in a trailer, people get attached and you start seeing art of it all over the place. But I didn't see anything generated by regular content of that game. If I saw anything, it was definitely somebody who was paid to say this game is amazing, that kind of
game
stuff.
journalists.
It's like no, it's. I mean, if it's so amazing, where's the players? There's so many copies of this thing on the shelf everywhere, but it did the opposite of sell out.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. It's just and people, I genuinely do feel bad for the people who did like the game and can't play it anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
it could have existed in its own little corner. Net, I don't care. Do whatever you want with your game. I just won't play it. But
It's
I
just definitely a series of a bunch of bad higher up decisions for sure.
well, yeah, but it also goes to the end of the day. It's like people think this is what people want, and it's not what they want. It's just not appealing. Because even like a guy like me, I love who's a walking trash can. Like, who cares?
The other
And it's
thing
like
is
you can.
maybe
And here's the thing, right? It's like you can have very. Sorry, I wanted to get this out of my head
yeah, go
before I
for it.
lose it. What was there was some like big woman character in the game. She looked like a fucking turtle in her armor that she had. And it's like, well, yeah, I understand not every character has to be like the ultimate image of fucking, Playboy bunny XS, uh um physical,
Widowmaker.
body type. Sorry, I was tripping over myself there. But again, I like the characters in Overwatch. Zarya is an appealing character, despite she's a strong woman. She's a bodybuilder, but she still has a really appealing character design. Doesn't look like a fucking like potato. It's
Yeah.
like you can do this. You just have to try a little bit. People don't care. People aren't pointing. I'm not going to throw around political terms, but no one's pointing at Zarya saying the same things they were pointing at that character saying.
Yeah.
And they're both the same kind of character archetype. It's all just about appealing design, colors, styles, something appealing about the character, personality, anything. But you look at that, everyone takes one look at the character and you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like really
I was gonna
pretty
say
colors.
the the benefit of a doubt I guess I could give them because of the time frame that game was in development was maybe this was a good idea at the time, but they just spent so long developing it that the good idea faded dramatically with the amount of things that started to come out. I mean,
Yeah,
this type of thing really fucks with others when, like, imagine a company, um, Naughty Dog, for example. They're going to release. I mean, they're still going to sell like a pretty good number of whatever their intergalactic game is. I don't know if the numbers are going to be as high as they are thinking it's going to be, but I think it's still going to sell well because it's a PlayStation IP. But like, if FromSoft out of nowhere was just like Elden Ring 2, that game would be like, oh, son of a bitch, because it's the same vein because they're building this Souls-like game for the first time with Naughty Dog. Even though it's, they say that it's going to have that appeal. I don't know. I haven't seen anything else about it, but anytime like the big hitter that shows up to the party with that genre that everybody tries to copy because you never, you haven't seen them in a while, and a new game gets announced, that's when they just come through and absorb all the hype. And it's just like, damn it, I got eaten alive by the thing I was trying to imitate.
yeah.
No, a sixth remaster of Last of Us.
Yeah.
Well, an example of an
It-
IP that's potentially dead, right? Because no one likes Last of Us 2. If you do, you're lying to yourself. Because if you really hate Last of Us, that's what Last of Us 2 is made for. We hated the first game.
I mean, the only positive thing I hear universally about that game is the gameplay. The story and the characters are shit. Except
Yeah.
mostly the ones that weren't in the first one to begin with.
I don't even but the thing is, people came to that series for the story, and I haven't heard any praise the gameplay. All I've heard, well, I haven't heard. I've seen people play through the first and second game, and yes, it is terrible. But are they really now with the bad grace? Especially because hilariously they tried to they instead of taking the W and changing the story for the TV show, they just kept going with it. And oh, look at that! Even the normies who are just watching the TV show hate it too. Oh,
Yeah, the viewer
fucking
base
sucks, Neil
dropped
Druckmann. I'm
dramatically.
sorry. Your ideas are shit.
Because Last of Us 1 was so amazing. I love that game. I played it back to back to back. Like when I finished it, I started it immediately and ran it back on like survivor mode, and then I ran it back on easy just to get everything. Then the second game came out, and I was kind of like, "The fuck is this?" You know, I still played it all the way through because I enjoyed the gameplay. Like they did a good job, you know, tightening that stuff up and everything because you know the reactions of the characters, blah blah blah. But like the story, I was just like, why would you tell it this way? And it's funny because they just released another Last of Us update thing, whatever, because they keep milking Last of Us 2 like crazy. But now you can play the story, I guess, in chronological order through all the DLC bullshit or whatever the hell that means. I was just kind of confused. But the bait and switch, like you were saying earlier, is to use media to learn from before. Um, yes, Metal Gear Solid 2 is kind of praised and looked back on in like hey, that game was actually pretty dope. But the biggest complaint that game had was everybody thought you were going to play as Snake, and then they bait and switch you, and now you're playing as Raiden, and you only play as Snake in the beginning of the game, in the like tutorial zone basically, and then when you're done with that mission, now you're playing as Raiden, this like pretty boy with long blonde hair in a bodysuit, and it's like, what the hell is this? Like, where's Snake at? You know, that's not the character I wanted to play as. And when they do that with Abby, it's like, especially right after the moment that makes you hate her. And I get like, oh, it's going to be an impact to the player because they're going to be so mad at her, and now they have to play as her. And it's like I would have much rather have played as her first, and then when you're hunting this person, you don't know who it is, and then when you finally get them around the door and trigger the cutscene, you're like, oh shit, and like then you switch over to Joel, and then you have to play going up to your impending doom, knowing that's about to happen. But you're just kind of like, then you feel sad about it the whole time because you know it's coming. But they also had this whole thing where it got leaked and shit because they had a disgruntled employee and all that crap. But either way, shit to bed with that one.
Well, I mean, go ahead.
I feel like that concept of killing the main character of the past game only works if it's like a continuing storyline, but it's like a passing the torch type of thing as a protagonist. Like you go through the adventure of this character, and then in the next game, you they get killed by another protagonist, and then that one continues their story, but in their own. Obviously, no, there's like no possible way they're gonna be the exact same character. But it would be an interesting concept for the game. But Last of Us is definitely not that kind of game.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm like, it's an interesting concept, but Last of Us was not a game for that because the problem with the whole concept is that I agree, Corey, you could probably make this better, but I think at the end of the day, the whole idea is flawed from the start because of what story they built in the first one. Because it's not about, it's all about Joel and Ellie's relationship. And not only that, the marketing material made it seem like it was about, you know, Joel and Ellie going on another fucking crazy, you know, fucking fungus zombie adventure. But then they hit you with that. And not only that, they really make it the game like seems to like it goes beyond that because not only do you kill Joel and Ellie, or not Joel and Ellie, just Joel, but you make the whole game miserable. And I'm not saying it has to be feel good all the way through, but like you're just seeing two characters that the audience grew to love in the last game just suffer the entire time. and the game basically preaching to you that Joel in the first game is actually really stupid and evil, and no one liked him, and he made all the decisions, even though most people agree with what he did, even if it doesn't lead to a happy ending for everyone. It led to a happy ending for him and Ellie, essentially. There's a whole problems. There's tons and tons of problems in there. I don't want this to become a fucking Last of Us 2 bitching stream, but the point, to bring it back to the topic, it's like, you had an IP that had so much good faith in the first game and then just shit the fucking bed in the second game, to where it's like, is a third game even going to like work? Is it going to happen? I know Neil Druckmann said to people are going to come back for it. Is it dead now because of that? Because of how bad you fucked the narrative? Like, that's the thing that's worth considering when you think about it. Is even worth getting another one, because they must know. They have to know how much bad PR that game has. They have to.
Well, it's kind of like God of War and Uncharted. Right? Like, I don't want to play another Uncharted game that isn't Nathan Drake. I know that they set up with him having a daughter and they're at the beach house thing that they have now, and he's kind of retired, but I don't want to play Uncharted as her, not because I don't want to play as a like female character. It's just it's not Uncharted anymore. And I don't want to play Atreus in a God of War game. If you're going to do an Atreus game, that might be fine, but it's not God of War anymore because it's not Kratos.
Yeah, and I don't
know
care
that
if it's
they
a
do that
spinoff or
stuff,
something.
right? Yeah, and, we had this conversation, I think, before this, because we were talking about Dragon Age, and I was like, maybe Dragon Age Veilguard would have been more successful if they completely removed any of the characters that had to do with the previous Dragon Age games, kept a similar story with new original characters, and just called it Veilguard, and then something like a Dragon Age story. And that way it's set in the universe. People that like Dragon Age might like this, but they're using, it's kind of just baiting the people with the IP's, name to kind of get into the game itself instead, because they don't think the game's going to stand on its own. So that's probably how that stuff ends up getting created, because like, could you have told me that Veilguard was going to be Dragon Age all the time or the whole time, or like, how can we incorporate this into Dragon Age? Because they changed like the playstyle and stuff completely, right? So like in the Dragon Age games kind of evolved playstyle wise, as because the first one is dramatically different than Veilguard. Like it was super RPG heavy, and then it, like, even with the battle system, it starts to turn more like action based. But that's as that's the trend chasing, where you're trying to make the games more accessible, because one, the game itself is so expensive to develop now that you have to try and have a customer base that's much broader than the, like, hyper focused customer base that you would have sold that game to. But then you end up not selling it to anybody, especially in a culture where people are just going to watch it online as like way more than they used to.
Yeah, and we all know, I mean, I'm glad you brought up Veilguard, because again, an example of a game that is, this is speculative killing of games at this point, but it's like, I don't know if we're ever going to see another Dragon Age, and if we do, it's not going to be for a long time because of how badly that game bombed. They don't have to release their numbers all they like. We can tell, people aren't stupid. That game got put on sale so fucking quick. Like, it was put for free on PS Plus. Like, they just wanted people to buy it for any price at a certain point. And for people who like the game, I'm glad you like it, but I'm mad that it basically probably killed Dragon Age. At this point, I have to just be happy with what was made and to not look forward to it coming out, and I'm terrified of the whatever Mass Effect shit that they are brewing in their witch's cauldron. But because I think that is an example of people who just did not understand. Like, it was it was one of two things. Either A, it was a group of people that simply just, because as we've discussed before, everyone who's working at BioWare is not the people who made Dragon Age and Mass Effect to begin with at all. Like, those people are long gone. And so the people who are working on it must either not have understood what Dragon Age was and just wanted to make their own thing, or it was just like shit, the second point ran away from my brain. Well, either way, I feel like they just didn't understand what it was, and they wanted to make their whole other game, and it ended up killing Dragon Age essentially. I just hope they don't. Go ahead.
Well, I feel like the death of like the sequel of games, like not having like obviously not having like the successors of or the developers of the successor of the previous game there with them to tell them what the game is like meant to be or to have like any sort of guidance. But the fact that like, they don't do their research with the audience, the market, like what is currently trending or like the practices of other companies, they just don't play the fucking game that they're making a sequel of. Like you're just making a sequel with no knowledge of like what the game has been brought up to from the very beginning. Like all these people like making games like don't even play video games as a hobby. They just run it as a business. Like it's not what the CEO of go Gearbox or 2K does. He just like go make Borderlands. I was like, I don't know what it is. Just make me money.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's kind of circling around the example of just like the higher ups causing deaths of games since they just want money and they don't understand like how these other games were so successful in the first place and not understanding anything about the gaming space, about games, or how gamers react to everything. So it's just
Well,
it leads to the death of things. So
it's crazy because Microsoft would have killed Bayonetta, but Nintendo came in
yeah,
and picked it back up.
that's a perfect example of a game that could have died had Nintendo not done anything.
And she is like a cultural icon.
Yeah,
I mean,
Bayonetta is
she's in
great.
Smash. Everybody knows who Bayo is, and it's she got 3 games and a spin-off game and an anime.
Yeah, and like
and after the
it's
first game, Microsoft canceled development of the second one, and they didn't know what to do. And then Nintendo bought it and made it an exclusive. People got upset, but
yeah,
even the
that's what I was
people
gonna
that
say.
created Bayonetta were like, "Well, I'm fine with it because nobody else wanted to help us."
Well, yeah, because people were like, "Oh, Bayonetta 2 is gonna be a Wii U exclusive," and people were like, "What? I don't want to buy a Wii U to play Bayonetta." And it's like, I think I don't know if it's the creator. Or, I don't know. I think it was probably the creator being like, "Listen, you can play it on the Wii U, or you can get fucked because if it wasn't for Nintendo, you wouldn't have one. So
Yeah,
be happy with what you have."
and Nintendo has a chance to do like the coolest thing in the world to me and get Capcom to revive the Mega Man Legends franchise with Mega Man Legends 3 because it was a canceled project they were doing for 3DS. And I liked Mega Man Legends 1 and 2 because it's their basically Mega Man Zelda games. And then they
Mhm.
announced 3, and
I've
then
never heard of that.
everybody kind of got there was some hype behind it, but then Capcom pulled the trigger. It wasn't officially greenlit, but they're like, nah, we're out. And then the creator of Mega Man also was leaving Capcom too, so he went off to go make Mighty Number 9, which that was
Hey, look, that's
It's
another
so
dead
weird.
game. A
yeah,
single
not the
player game, but
greatest
it's
idea.
dead nonetheless. Dead on
But
arrival is what we call.
those games kind of ended up inspiring a new franchise, which is the Gunvolt. I think like those games are pretty
Mhm.
fucking cool.
I think at the end of the day, unfortunately, like my beef's more of just like the loss of media because I haven't experienced outside of like Princess Connect really. Well, in a side sense, Princess Connect is done and buried unless I go to the JP servers where I can't read the text anyways. But it's like what was it's the meme from Red Letter Media. It's like how does it feel when growing up and seeing all the things you love die? It just like feels great. Um, because it's just like to me at this point, Dragon Age is dead, Mass Effect is dead, Halo is dead. Like one by one, the gaming franchises that I've liked have just died one by one reason or another. You typically just usually done due to the degradation of like the actual games itself due to like poor development cycles and them just putting out poor products. And unfortunately that's kind of like the most truest reality in modern gaming now is just like just produce poor games and people just don't want to buy them.
I mean,
Yeah,
if they just like if they paid attention to like how Nintendo maintains longevity through like Zelda and their Mario games and stuff. Granted, not every Mario game is great, but if you were talking about like a mainline, like the Mario game that's for the console and stuff, or like the Zelda game that's for the console, um, it's interesting how they've managed to keep something that basically never changes to like maintain its popularity, and it's probably because it never really strays from its original formulas as much as some of these other people who try to reinvent the wheel with something.
Well, they reinvent the wheel in the wrong ways
Yeah,
though, right? Because I mean, I as much as I hate to feel like here on Mediocre Rumble Brothers, we seem to suck Nintendo's dick a lot of the time. But I think at the end of the day, I am more satisfied with Nintendo products than I have a lot of other products besides, Pokemon stuff, because Scarlet and Violet still sucks balls despite the frame rate going up with the Switch 2. But my point being is that, like, I feels like Nintendo learns from their mistakes sometimes, because it's like, we went from Mario 64 to Mario Sunshine, which I think a lot of people would agree is an overall downgrade. People didn't care for Sunshine a whole lot. It's still fondly remembered. There's still nostalgia for it. It's not like a horrible game on its surface, but compared to that, to going to Galaxy, and even I'd say Galaxy is the better game, even though I've played Sunshine more. Galaxy's overall improvement. Odyssey's an improvement on that. We're about to get DK Bonanza in less than a week, and that game has the job of not only basically being a soft reboot for the DK franchise, selling people on his design, and but they really focused hardcore. The game hasn't come out yet, so maybe it comes out and it's balls as fuck. But based on that trailer that I saw, I'm like, ooh, I'm kind of excited about this. Looks really fun. But Nintendo, when they make new games and sequels, they don't try to make. I think I read/heard about this. Nintendo doesn't like making sequels for stuff unless they have like a reason to, like they have some kind of innovative new gameplay idea to put in the game. With Mario 64, it was just the fact it was 3D. Mario Sunshine was playing with the water physics and stuff like that. Mario Galaxy, the gravity mechanics and all the different fun things you can do with that. Mario Odyssey was taking advantage of being able to transform into a bunch of stuff and having like an open world platformer almost. Loose definition of that, but it's always something new. But when other like Overwatch 1 to 2 comes out and it's like, what was the innovation? Better microtransactions. It's like, oh, good. Like you didn't really try to make the game better, tried to make it profitable. You're not actually striving for upgrades and a better product. You're trying to feed your bottom line, which at the end of the day you can't fault because it is a company and they need to make money, but they're just going about it in the greediest way possible. People can clearly see what they're doing and don't want. Nintendo still tries, again, I'm gonna hold up my hands. Nintendo does some greedy fucking shit what the fuck. But when it comes to the games, again, $80 games, kind of fucking weird. But DK Bonanza is only going to be $70 as the price as any other new. So like, they have their sins too. But at the end of the day, I just feel like they are more honest in their game development than a lot of other companies are. More focused on making a good product that will make them money than just making money with a halfway mediocre product they can just, feed into live service shit forever and hopefully it'll just make them $1 million.
It's true that we do suck Nintendo's dick, but I mean it's it's well deserved because I was like,
well deserved dick sucking.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, it was like compared to like all the other major companies, Nintendo has the most integrity. This is not like talking about Game Freak, because like they're the ones who focus on.
Game
Pokemon.
Freaks had one major fumble, but it was pretty bad.
Yeah, but it's like Nintendo has the integrity to keep themselves alive because they're self-sufficient. They can't afford to make the kind of decision that all the other companies are making. So that's why they can survive for much longer and with less reliability on more broader audience or something like that. But the thing about the Nintendo games is that like the reason together is that they never lose like the base structure of the IP. Like all Mario games are platformers, and all they have to do is for like the next game is just build it up in a different way than they did the last one. But they never lose the main purpose of the game, the style, or like the mechanics.
Yeah.
So it's like all they have to do is just let's sweep the board and then just keep the base idea of the game and just build it up. Next game, wipe the board, base mechanics, build it up. That's all they have to do. But the problem with all the other companies is that they just wipe the board completely clean. It was like if the mechanic didn't work on the first one, they wipe it away. Regardless of the fact that it worked or not, they just want to do something completely different.
I mean, you're starting to see that kind of with Square and their Final Fantasy franchise, because they're notoriously turn-based RPG games, and they were like the bar. That was Final Fantasy was like the blockbuster JRPG that would come out that was like the standard pretty much. And it was also because it's such a mainstream version, it was the way people would get into or introduced to JRPGs for the most part. But as like modern gaming has kind of led us to Souls games and action games and online stuff, they you can see the Final Fantasy franchise branching into that as well, where they got Strangers in Paradise. They have the Final Fantasy VII remakes are action based games that have that high energy Devil May Cry style combat, and then Final Fantasy 16 is the same way. And I know that the fan base, I don't know how divided it is. I don't know if it's like a 50-50 split. I loved playing Final Fantasy 16, and I do enjoy playing the remakes of Final Fantasy 7. I don't mind the playstyle change because I like both of those types of games anyways. But when you take something that was notoriously a certain way and then completely changing the gameplay style specifically to try to reach a broader audience, like we said earlier, is you're like, oh shit, like maybe people aren't going to buy this because they just see the word Final Fantasy. Even though you change the play style, they're like, oh, I'm not into those games. And because it's like this 16th one. So they're going to, some people might just be like, oh, I'm too far gone. Like starting One Piece, I don't know what's going on. I'm so far behind, even though they're not actually related, but the gameplay style is, they won't even get to see it because they just get turned away from the fact that it's associated with what the games have been over the years, and that's kind of sad. But at the same time, I don't mind playing them anyways. I would like to see a return to form from them just to see what it is, but they kind of spin out into other things like Octopath and a couple other types of games and take their main one and try to reinvent the wheel with it. They used to update the combat system for every one that came out anyways, but they were all still kind of universal in the turn-based way. Like the systems of leveling up in battle was the thing I would be interested in every time a new Final Fantasy was coming out. And 10, I really liked the combat system and the sphere grid and stuff. That was super cool. But it's almost the equivalent of taking Mario and turning him into a first-person shooter. And you're like, what?
Well, and it's funny too because like Nintendo still does spin-offs, right? Because there does exist a Mario game that is a tactical shooter, but it's a spin-off. It's like they didn't try and cram that into a mainline,
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Final Fantasy because like I wanted to mention Final Fantasy, but I didn't know enough about it because I don't play Final Fantasy super often. I am intrigued about the new ones, but not spend my own money to play it. But I'm glad you brought it up.
So you're like Corey, it did
play it. I mean, I'm glad he brought it up in the podcast because like some of the points that he made is ones that I wanted to make. But on what Corey said about Final Fantasy, it's like what Final Fantasy like turned away from was the turn-based combat, but that's something that Dragon Quest is going on to 12 still keeping, and it's almost as long going as Final Fantasy, but they're not steering away from turn-based combat.
Yeah, I think that's why that franchise holds its integrity, because when you get a Dragon Quest game, you're just like, yes, I'm getting a Dragon Quest game. You're excited about it. You're never second guessing like, oh, here we go. What's this one going to be? Because if it is a different play style, it's a spin-off. It's Dragon Quest Builders or Dragon Quest Heroes.
Yeah. The value of spin-offs. That's a whole episode we can talk about. Not today though. But yeah, hey Jordan, you've been a little quiet over there. You just been sitting enjoying the conversation, or do you have anything to say on the topic?
I mean, just basically the things that people have seen happen throughout the entirety of how games have been usually dying off. It's been a bit painful, but at the same time, it's been a learning experience for everybody there, that they basically are going to finally figure out that you cannot always do what you think is going to be what's best for yourself, but what's best for the community. And the community is the one that basically determines whether your games are good or not. And you have to be able to appease to those people out there, because if you don't, then of course you end up being these people that we end up talking about on our podcast that just spend tons of money and throwing it away. So we want better games out there. We always want people to be imaginative and do everything they possibly can to make a really good game. But at the same time, be sure that you're always looking out there and looking at the history of what games have been successful and put that towards a way of molding things together to make a very successful game, like we've always been saying, or that we have already said, which is, make Expedition 33, make Split Fiction, or any of those kind of games that have really are going to be basically around for a very long time, that people are going to be able to point at and say, this is a game that did really well, this is why, and looking at that and referencing that to make something really work for you. So, I mean, that's pretty much what I have.
I'm so glad that Expedition 33 was like so well received, because even though it's not it's not like it repopularized turn-based, because Baldur's Gate exists, ReFantazio, mainly every Atlas game they release is a turn-based game. But for a brand new studio to make a game that's, I'm hoping it gets Game of the Year just because of this. It is so far my Game of the Year right now. But I'm hoping Final Fantasy sees this and goes, this game that was inspired by us is doing really well. Maybe we should go back to being what inspired that kind of shit.
Exactly.
Well, I was actually gonna bring up 33, because I mean, not only was I saying I was kind of starting to get interested because I randomly came across some of the soundtrack. I was like, ooh, but when obviously, even if it's not a direct sequel, the studio is clearly going to make another game at this point, right? Because why would they stop unless they're going to be real smart and just cash out while they're ahead?
Like, we did it. High five walks into
yeah,
the
high dive. Yeah, do what Notch did. But if they do make a sequel, that will be an indicator where their values lie and how they're perceive it. Do I think they're gonna fuck it up? I don't know. I don't know anything about these people. It's their first fucking game, and so far it seems to be a banger for a lot of people who like that kind of game, and I'm glad. But let's see if they can keep up the momentum, if they can feel out what their sequel is going to be, or if Expedition's going to die in the sequel. Who knows? We don't know.
Yeah. Are we going to get an actual Expedition 33 sequel, or is it going to be a brand new game? Are they going to use Clair Obscur as like the headline for any game that they make moving forward? Are they developing a franchise? If they turn around and release like a first-person shooter, it's going to be weird, right? Because you're like, you guys don't actually care. But I'm hoping, after hearing the story of these developers leaving Ubisoft behind because they're like, I am tired of doing bullshit. I want to do something I'm passionate about. Like, I'm hoping that if they did announce a first-person shooter, there's probably a reason behind it. At least I would give them the chance to show that to me, instead of writing them off immediately. But if I got a hold of it and it felt like, here's another first person shooter game, and it falls into the category of Condemned or Jericho or Legendary, I'm like, well, let's throw that one in the trash. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure, especially when your first game is, you literally just made an absolute banger, and then you're like, well, now the only way forward is possibly down. It's not up. So
they can. Their main goal with the sequel should be treading water, not trying. Well, I guess if they wanted to try and do themselves, and I think the safer bet is just trying to recreate whatever magic they did in the first one.
Please don't double your studio size. Don't become the thing that you left. If you just keep the team you have and make another like passion project, go for it. But you don't need 60 people or 150 people with 30 HR people pulling all your resources of cash for no reason other than to sit at a desk and make you scared to say anything in the office. It's like, that's crazy.
I mean, that's also, I feel like, a big thing with a lot of games nowadays that ends up degrading their quality, which can lead to death, is the too many cooks in the kitchen problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
also
just
forgetting your main audience as well. That would kill the game fast.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, we touched on that with the fucking Dragon Age shit and Overwatch and whatnot. Like, that's primarily what is the the symptom of a game not doing what it used to before, is that its core audience leaves. And but I mean, I keep getting mad about things dying, but at this point I'm just like, well, I'm glad I got what I got, and I'm glad Mass Effect 1 through 3 exists. I'm glad Dragon Age Origins 2 and Inquisition exist. I'm not glad that Veilguard exists, but I'm just gonna start moving on to my other things. It's like I'm sad Princess Connect got shut down, but now I have Musume. We'll see if that one.
Yeah.
I still had Fate to fall back on. So at the end of the day, with these games and their franchises that die, the best thing to do. I mean, talk about dead games. Fucking Jack and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank. These really good games that never really fell off. They were just abandoned for seemingly no reason. I'm sure Jack and Daxter wasn't as much money with the sequels as they were with the first one, but like, then they decided to make Last of Us took over from. They wanted to do something else. And
the studio wanted to change the identity of the type of games that they made because they're coming off Crash Bandicoot and other like friendly games. There's concept art for Jak 4. It's in a Naughty Dog art book, but they just wanted to switch gears and make things like Uncharted and Last of Us. And Uncharted is a good series. It's just once Last of Us came out, I feel like that was the giant roadblock for them because that game dropped and then they haven't done anything since really.
Yeah,
well,
and
well,
I mean,
Jack
like,
and Daxter died. Ratchet and Clank was revisualized, which is almost equally as sad.
Yeah, and it's just like I don't like with Jack and Daxter specifically. It's like I really like 1 through 3. I don't know about the road racing one. I know Corey and Jordan played that one a little bit, but that was kind of more of a spin off than anything.
I got that other one that what is it, Lost Legacy or what, or whatever the weird PSP one. They also ported it to PS2, and I picked that up when you were here last time when we went to that pawn shop.
Yeah.
And so I turned that on for a little bit, and I was like, wow, this actually plays really well. Like it's actually pretty fun. So I'll probably go back and like give that game a full spin because I like the Jak and Daxter franchise, and that's the only playable Jak and Daxter game that I haven't actually played. I played a little bit of Daxter and stuff, but I'll give this one a go.
I beat Daxter, but my point was I'm trying to my hypothesis or my conclusion that I'm trying to make with it is that if Jack and Daxter is dead and buried, again, stuff like this can be undone tomorrow if they come out and say there's. But I'm okay with it being dead and buried at this point. Not because I wouldn't like to see a new Jack and Daxter, but it's like I think a lesson that a lot of people are learning. A lot of people. I guess I'm an optimist at heart, even though I'm mostly a pessimist. I do not want to see a new Jack and Daxter because it will not be a Jack and Daxter game unless a miracle happens, right? Like it's like you can have spots in the dark, like the Dead Space remake that clearly had people working on it that really liked Dead Space and it turned out for the better. But that is such a uncommon occurrence that I'd rather not even roll. I would rather just enjoy what Jack and Daxter was and hope they don't ruin it. New stuff, Veilguard can't tarnish the other Dragon Age. Much as I'd hate it, it more tarnishes what it could, like what Dragon Age could have been, not what it was, because I can still go back and enjoy the past games. So I think with anything that people love that are dead and buried now, just be glad you got what you got and look to indie games, look to any other game series. I was just telling Corey, I'm like, I think, I played Baldur's Gate expecting to fall in love with it like I did with Dragon Age and Mass Effect, and I didn't really get that feeling from it. But with what people say about Clair Obscur, or I guess I should say Expedition 33 is probably what people know it more as. But the more I hear about the game, I'm more like, maybe I'll try that game because that sounds like, it sounds like it might scratch that. It might be a new big thing that I get into. The best advice I can say for so that's what I would say for people whose stuff is dead and buried or potentially die. Just be glad with what you got, and if you roll all 7s and the new game is just as good as the old ones, hey, I'm happy. I'm glad. But just if that doesn't happen for the vast majority of people, especially people like me, just look for new things. Obviously you don't need that kind. People probably reach that conclusion on their own, but it's more like I'm just kind of realizing that was just keep hoping for the next thing. Maybe this one will be better. Maybe this one will be good, but it just never ends up being that way. And it probably won't ever be again. So it's time to look for new stuff instead of hoping the old stuff is going to remain relevant and good. So that's my conclusion on the whole thing. And we are running up to time because I am not recording any more Watch 2 footage than I absolutely fucking have to. So unless anyone has anything last thing to say, go ahead, speak now. Otherwise, Jordan can take us out. No? Going once? Going twice?
Yeah,
okay, go ahead,
good.
Jordan.
All right, well, I guess we'll be wrapping it up today. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify, Twitter, YouTube, and our Rumble channel so you never miss an episode. And to all you gamers out there, just remember to keep exploring, keep playing, and keep listening. Until next time, this is the Mediocre Rumble Bros podcast signing off. Thanks for listening.
Passion over money.
Hey, this is Corey, and thanks for checking out Mediocre Rumble Brothers. If you liked the video, please drop a like, and if you didn't, that's fine too. If you'd like us to talk about any specific games, drop a comment below, or feel free to discuss your experience with the games that we've mentioned in the episode. You can also listen to our episodes prior to YouTube on our Spotify. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you again soon.